I went to NOLA, did the whole thing with the folks, with the girlfriend, the French Quarter, the food, the booze. You got to do it, blah, blah, blah. I got to tell you, I fall more in love with my city the older I get. Isn't that weird?
Oh, yeah, I feel that. Well, you're further away from it. You're removed from it, and I think you have the introspection to say, thank God. When I'm driving up Storrow Drive or the Mass Pike coming into Boston, I say, thank Christ I'm from here.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I met my brother in a park, and we're playing with my nieces, and he's got 2 kids. We headlock, we punch each other in the balls, and all this, and it's a great time. And I'm like, I never used this park. I grew up here. I'm 4 minutes away from this park as a kid. Never went here. Never thought about it. Me and my gal, we got on those swans, like the paddle swan things that's on the lake. Never did that in a million years. Went to the Cafe Du Monde in the park, had a beignet and a coffee. I'm like, this park is beautiful. I walked by the amusement park. I'm like, oh, yeah, I went here a couple times. It's this adorable fucking kids amusement park with, like, the little roller coaster and everything. And it's classic Rockwell. What's it? Norman Rockwell bullshit. And I did all that. I'm like, I didn't take any of this in. I made fun of it. I took a shit on the walls and spit on the floor. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I guess you get more wisdom.
Appreciative, grateful.
Gratitude, yeah. Well, that's the thing too, and we've talked about this before. Is when people go, "Oh, I don't want to go to the tourist attraction. Don't send me to the cool. I want to go to the thing." And you're like, "But the tourist that's why it's the tourist. It's the coolest part of the city."
Right.
So you go down there, you go to Bourbon Street. You're like, hey, Bourbon Street's a little much, but the French Quarter is it's spectacular. Cafe Du Monde, all that shit. And wherever you go, Boston, the Charles River, the Hatshell, Copley Square, whatever, New York, the Empire State Building, you want to see the part because that's why everyone's going to see it. It's spectacular.
Yeah, but I almost feel like, your own city or my own city, it's like that friend, like New Orleans is this destination, bachelor party, weddings, Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest. And people are like, I love New Orleans. And I'm like, yeah, I love it too. But it's almost like that friend of yours that you love, but you know all his flaws. So you're like, yeah, I get that you like Willie. But if you knew all this other shit, I lived with the guy for 10 years, all right? Yeah, he's a fun dude, but he also, cries at night and keeps me up.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I know that feeling well where people are like, oh, my God, you know that guy? And you're like, yeah, I know that guy.
I know him too well. That's how I have with New Orleans. Like I know him and he's fun. He'll have a beer with you, but he'll also fuck your daughter or whatever.
Yeah, so. No. I think everything. I always say. I used to have this analogy when I was younger that for me, the feeling of these cities, like Boston to me feels like family, and New York feels like close friends.
Yes,
where you love both, but one you chose. And one, similar to family, Boston, I'm like, it's great and it's beautiful and I love it and I'd die for it. But if you get too close, you might get beat up for being gay. It's a little rough around the edges. It's tougher and there could be improvements.
Yeah,
and
wow,
same
well
with New York.
Said, Fatty.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's a love-hate. It's like John Hughes in Home Alone where he says, how you feel about your family is a complicated thing. I feel that way about your hometown. It's complicated.
Yes, it's complicated. Yeah, we used to fuck, now we don't. It's weird. But I still have love for it, but I go back and I see it for what it is because I get to step back and the sun was setting over the Bayou St. John. We had a beer in my hand. It hit me. It was a little much, but here's the clinker though. Had a show at the Broadside, which is like this theater they've turned into an outdoor thing now with COVID. And so my brother's like, I live 2 blocks away from there. I'll come. I said, great. It's sold out. I look like a cool guy. I'm at a sellout show. I got my lady does a few minutes. She opens. That was fun. And, it's all these local New Orleanians, my people, my townsmen that I grew up with. And I fucking died in front of my brother. It was he's in the front row. He's got a blazer on. He's looking at his kid, bro. I had him for like the first 20. The first 20 I'm killing, and I just looked down at him. It was the pilot was in the audience. I lost it. I couldn't hang, and I'm doing a new hour after Out to Lunch came out, so it's still a little rickety and rockety, and I had no real ending. And then I had one of those endings where I was like, well, guess we're about done here. And then one guy kind of does this, and then they're all like, oh, okay. Now they're all kind of like, oh, that wasn't supposed to be the end. I jizzed on my own feet instead of her face.
I've done that. I've jizzed on my own feet. I know the feeling. It sucks. I guess maybe it wasn't as bad as you think, but people say that, but you're like, it doesn't matter because the feeling is what I'm talking about.
The feeling is brutal, and comedy's such a flimsy thing. It's an art form, and we're a bunch of artists, queefs, and all this shit. We moved to New York to do this and that, and I had them for like 20 minutes. I was rocking, baby, and I was like, hey, welcome to Comedy Town, Chooch, and he was like, oh, look at this, my brother's killing, and then the ending was just, and when you got your family there, or there's some kind of thing happening, or you're on a TV taping, the brain is just gone. Like, there's no looseness, I can't find anything. I just couldn't think of one funny thing to say. Then you start getting extra dirty because you're like, I'm just trying to get a laugh, and that gets weird because you're like just the filthy guy who's not really killing. It was brutal.
Yeah, that sucks. That's rough, especially with the brother, and the hometown bomb is rough. I've been there. I've had it. It's a bad feeling. And I hate that feeling. I've had it a few times. I did shows this weekend, and we're not sharp because I'm not doing a ton of shows. So
no,
you have
sharp.
those moments where you're like, I know there's one more line to this joke, and I just...
Exactly.
I can't think of it. I'm sorry. And you feel so bad because there's this weird thing, and I was talking about this weekend in the green room with comics, where you're like, you're trying to work out and figure the act out because you're not doing a ton of sets and it's COVID, so everything's weird. But also, these people paid money and they're risking their lives. But you're like, I just don't know my act that well. So you kind of have to be like, you got to meet me halfway. Some of this might stink. I might have to look at my phone a couple times. I'm sorry. But I think you got to take solace in that people, they get it, they understand, and they're just happy to see you. But you feel, what it is too, is you feel much more pressure. The more you sell tickets, the more stressful it is, the more pressure it is.
Yeah, completely. And then like this hot shot from New York's coming down. This should be a good show. And then when it tapers, you feel like you let them down a little bit, and then they leave kind of like, it was good, but then it ended. I don't know. I'm overthinking it, but I did a show a couple nights later, and it was great. And it did a Q&A at the end, which feels so cool. People are like, how's the Beamer? What's List up to? Queef, so that's fun. So we redeemed ourselves, but boy, you don't want to bomb in front of family. And my mom said, should we go? And I remember being like, it's sold out. And I'm so glad they didn't go.